Have you noticed, when you're misunderstood, you don't correct the sentence, you correct your worth? That's not communication. That's your nervous system insisting you're unsafe. Most people push harder. You don't need to push. You need to regulate. In the next moments, I'll give you a simple ocean visualization and a grounding cue you can use in a crowded room. 2 steps, 10 breaths. The misunderstanding may remain, but the panic doesn't. You ready to trade debate for calm clarity? There's something rather curious. The instant someone misses your meaning, your pulse climbs as if a siren flipped on. Why does a simple sentence register as threat? Not because the words are wrong, but because your biology reads misattunement as danger. Before your mind can compose a better line, you've tried the scripts, the reframes, the tidy clarifications. You've learned to articulate, to slow down, to make points in numbered order, yet the same surge returns. The body does not care that the argument is sound. It cares that the field feels uncertain. Most people believe the fix is linguistic polish, but your lived reality is simpler and more animal. The body moves first, the mouth follows. By the time you reach for precision, the nervous system has already narrowed the channel. That's why your best sentences disappear right when you need them. Let me put it to you this way. A smoke detector that's extra sensitive will shriek for toast as if it were flame. Your system, tuned to subtleties, flags social ambiguity like smoke. It's protective, not defective. Ambiguous tone, fractional change in eye contact, siren. Here's what research consistently points toward without drama. Some people show what's called sensory processing sensitivity, a deeper processing of input and stronger activation in networks tied to awareness and empathy. When attunement breaks, the sympathetic branch primes you to mobilize. That priming is the felt spike. Another analogy. Most players at a poker table watch the cards. You, meanwhile, track micro-tells, air temperature, the hum of lights, the scrape of a chair, and the rhythm of breath around the circle. Your bandwidth burns faster, not because you're weak, but because you're running more channels at once. Across populations, a notable minority shares this pattern: depth of processing, sensitivity to subtle cues, and a tendency toward overstimulation. It's a trait, not a diagnosis, and it explains why crowded, ambiguous exchanges demand more fuel from you. Now, here's where it gets useful. If you can see the sequence, you can intervene at the first link. The chain is quick. Micro-threat detected, breath shortens, focus tunnels, language stutters. That's physiology, not personal failure. And physiology can shift. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Why do loud rooms turn this dial to maximum? If noise is outside you, why does invisibility bloom inside you? Peculiar, isn't it? More sound in the room, less presence in your chest. You're not vanishing. Something else is taking the wheel before your words can even form. You step into the event, and the world fragments. Fluorescent wash, voices layered 3 deep. Laughter hooks your ear from the left, a name you half know from the right. Social triangles forming and dissolving like quicksilver. Your attention splinters. Overhead hum, clink of glass, a shift in posture 2 conversations away, and the thread you are holding thins to a stray fiber. Here's the paradox. Your senses open wider, but you feel less seen. You take in more, but your language goes lean. Not because you lack content, but because your system does triage. What's relevant? What's threatening? What's yours to respond to now? The more channels you monitor, the narrower the path for expression. Let me put it to you this way. Think of an ocean striking a finely textured reef. Each incoming wave breaks not once, but into countless swirls, stirring every crevice. In clear water, detail is beauty. In heavy surf, detail becomes churn. A loud room is heavy surf. The very sensitivity that gives you nuance also multiplies the ripples until clarity turns turbulent. Another thing the awake person sees is the role of thresholds. Some systems allow noise to blur into the background. Yours lets it in. Lower gating means more raw data crosses the bridge and cognitive load rises. When load rises, working memory, the little workbench where phrases assemble, shrinks. Words thin because the bench is crowded. Then come the micro-threats, an ambiguous smile, a delayed nod. Eyes flick to the door mid-sentence. Your vigilance ticks up to resolve the uncertainty, and the attentional spotlight narrows. As vigilance tightens, expressive capacity compresses. Protection gets priority. Eloquence its turn. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. You don't have to silence the room to soften the surge. You can turn the volume down inside without moving an inch. So why does invisibility feel so familiar in loud spaces? Because overload diverts energy from expression to protection. You're not fading, you're reallocating energy to stay safe, to ride the surf without capsizing. Let me put it to you this way. If the room won't quiet down, the ocean within you can. If the misunderstanding won't budge, can your state still shift in under a minute? There's something rather curious here. Language can stay messy while your body calms. That small reversal changes the whole game. The aim is simple. Regulation first, then communication. You have permission to stop repairing the narrative midstream. Let the story wobble for 60 seconds while you steady the system that tells the story. Most people chase the right phrasing. You'll do the opposite. You'll drop arousal and let clarity reappear on its own, like a shoreline emerging as the tide goes out. Let me put it to you this way. Before you take the shot, you steady the camera hand and touch the focus ring. With a quiet adjustment, the edges click into place. The subject didn't change, your lens did. Brief grounding works the same way. It reduces sympathetic dominance, so the signal-to-noise ratio improves. Slow exhale breathing raises vagal tone, and when that tone rises, cognitive bandwidth widens. More room on the mental workbench for words to arrange themselves. Now, use the ocean. On the in-breath, the wave gathers. On the out-breath, it rolls and settles. Let the room's sound become surf, moving, layered, but not a storm you must stop. Guided imagery paired with interoceptive attention, the simple act of sensing breath, weight, temperature, helps your system recenter. Nature imagery lowers perceived stress because your nervous system recognizes patterns of safety in those rhythms. Here's the promise. You can do this in a crowded room and no one will notice. 2 steps, 10 breaths. No grand performance, just a quiet pivot from defense to presence. Step 1, ocean breaths, 10 cycles. Inhale to a gentle count, 4 works. Then exhale a little longer, 5 or 6. Keep the eyes soft at mid-distance so the visual field widens. With each out-breath, let the internal sand settle, 1 grain at a time. Step 2, a grounding cue. Press thumb to index finger, light pressure, steady, and shift a touch of weight toward your heels. Silently name 3 raw sensations. Cool air at the nostrils, fabric on skin, floor pressure through the shoes. No commentary, just contact. Another thing the awake person sees is the bigger frame. How many of you share this trait and what that means for belonging? If you've blamed yourself for years, what happens when a number reframes your story? There's something rather curious. One small statistic can loosen a lifetime of self-critique, not by flattering the ego, but by exposing a simple fact of biology. We're talking about a temperament, not a wound. Highly sensitive is a stable pattern found across human populations, and even across other species, marked by deeper processing, stronger emotional reactivity, and attunement to subtle cues. Most people assume sensitivity is a flaw to train out. No, it's a design, costly in chaos, powerful in clarity. Here's the tension. The inner narrator says, "You're too much, too fragile." The data says, "You belong to a meaningful minority with distinct strengths and limits." That minority is large enough to be real, small enough to feel rare. When you see it that way, your history doesn't read as failure, it reads as a trait moving through unfriendly conditions. Let me put it to you this way. Think of a forest. Most trees stretch into bright sun. Some make their home in the understory. They grow broad leaves, conserve energy, catch stray light, and notice the slightest change in wind. Same forest, different niche. You too are tuned for subtle light, slower to warm in glare, exquisitely alive to nuance. Common estimates place this temperament in a notable slice of the population, with the familiar markers: depth of processing, higher emotional resonance, sensitivity to small shifts in tone, touch, or context. Not pathology, diversity. The cost is overstimulation. The benefit is precision and empathy when conditions allow. Another thing the awake person sees is the power of resonance. Community acts like a tuning fork. Stand near people whose nervous systems share your frequency, and your system settles faster. Supportive groups help regulate physiology through co-regulation. Steady breath, calm eyes, and grounded presence become contagious in the best way, and belonging stops being an idea and starts being a felt shift. Now, here's the ethical pivot. If misunderstanding persists even after you regulate and speak with care, what then? You remember the numbers and honor the niche. Roughly a meaningful minority, think several in every classroom, office, or family, shares your sensitivity. Treat it as biological diversity, not a defect. Choose actions aligned with conscience and nervous system wisdom rather than chasing universal approval.